YouTube. Yeah, so first off, I don't know really what happened to my hair today. It's kind of, I found a hairdryer, or my hairdryer, and it was cold this morning, so I thought, and it kind of went all fluffy. Yeah, so anyway, I've been, as you maybe know, strats everywhere, going mad strats, and if it came down to it, I was like always a tele guy. I did like a tele Tuesday. That's why every time I was doing the trade Tuesday thing, I kept saying tele Tuesday, because I did that for like 10 weeks or something like that at the start of the lockdown. This one never made it into the tele Tuesday thing because I didn't have it at the time. I got this in, you saw me go and pick it up in one of the trade Tuesday ones, and it was a non-starter in the trade series, even though I did do a video of me going to get it, because I didn't know it was going to be a non-starter at the time. I ended up really liking it. This is an Antoria from the 70s tele, so I'm going to have a wee bit of a jam on this, but I'm going to do some talking first. No surprise there, really. Yeah, so this one, it had a big hole cut in the scratch plate here for a humbucker at one point, and it was really ugly, and I couldn't fit a normal Telecaster plate to it because it was not Telecaster size. A tele plate only comes to here, which means that you can still see the big hole that was gouged out for the humbucker, so I just put a humbucker in it. Just one with a cool looking cover on it to make it look right. It does something, the wiring's weird. My theory was good, I think. It didn't really work out the way I thought it would though. So it's basically got a 3-way switch. So it works just like, it just uses these two pickups, which are from a Fender Durosonic, like a Mexican one I think. I just used them because they look cool. So it's just a 3-way tele as usual. If you pull up the volume control, it uses one of the coils of the humbucker with this to make it into a humbucker, and if you pull up the tone control, it uses the other coil of this to make it that humbucker. So in theory it's got like an HH mode. If you pull these out, it's, the 3-way switch gives you 2 humbuckers. It does something funny though. I'll just in case anyone knows what's going on here, I'm not really sure. I have a theory that I think, like, see, to make a humbucker, right, you need to have 2 coils, right, and they need to be reverse polarity and reverse wound to each other, and then you stick the both of them in series and you get a humbucker. That's how a humbucker works. I think a humbucker pickup, just because it's the same magnetic polarity, or if it's the opposite, it might be the opposite wind. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, so what happens is, we're going to turn off the distortion. So there's the neck pickup on its own. You pull it out. It's a humbucker, yeah, which makes sense. And the bridge pickup, single, and then you pull it out. Yeah, so it makes 2 humbuckers, right? When you've got both the pickups on, just like in single coil, so bridge, both of them, gives you that wonderful tele sound. Right, when you've got both the pickups on and you pull out the neck pickup, that's fine, right? But see, when you pull out the bridge pickup, it seems to go out of phase, and I don't understand how that works. If you've got both of them in humbucker mode, so humbucker, bridge humbucker, both of them on. Maybe it's just in my head. Anyway, yeah. So I'm going to have a bit of a jam on this later, but more things I'm going to do today is must be about a year ago or something, I got this Aria bass, and as you can see, the scratch plate was destroyed, and I cut up a piece of aluminium checker plate and cut it on, and I was really impressed with myself. I give myself a good pat in the back for that, because I think that looks brilliant. Not ideal, but I mean, I don't think there's any issue. It's kind of cool looking, so that's just a bit of checker plate that I painted and stuck on, and in many ways it's better because it's now no longer likely to snap. That would be the reason sometimes the scratch plates snap on P basses, because it's just a scratch plate with these knobs and the jack sockets suspended in mid-air sort of thing. Now it's on a metal plate, so they ain't going to break. But my pal, who I was going to name and should give him a shout out and all that, which I've decided not to, left me a wee present this morning. He was working just up the road, and he works with aluminium sheets, dirt bar. So these are offcuts. I don't think you would get into trouble because I don't think you could really use that. It's not a very big piece. So I've got some and more of this stuff. So it's like that's just opened up huge windows of opportunity to me to use it. Because the reason I kind of stopped using it because I didn't have any of the stuff's expensive if you buy it B&Q. But just getting wee off-cutty bits. I can imagine you end up with, if you're working with this stuff, you end up with a van full of wee sort of unusable bits. If you're so you end up with all this stuff. A couple of bits there are actually, this bit here is big enough for a scratch plate, probably big enough for a P-base pick, so we're talking 1, possibly 3 out of that. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to getting my angle grinder out and making some stuff out of this. I'll just do the same. It turned out really well with the area there. I kind of sandpapered it to make it a bit cloudy, painted it and then mad lacquered it to make it black, so it doesn't need to be silver, and it's not like it is proper aluminium. Actually, well, I'm there, I want to check something. Is it conductive? We don't know. Maybe you know. I don't know. So is it conductive? Yes, it is. Right. So also, not only is it going to be much. Not only is it free, yeah, which is a great start. It's also super solid and chunky. It looks quite cool, and it's also going to act like a big massive shield. So it'll be basically brilliant. I don't know how easy it's going to be to cut out single coil pickups, but I mean I'll work out something. I've got a couple of guitars I want to get to. That's where I'm at to for the nuts of this video. Yeah. So this is an old EBO that I bought. It didn't have a bridge on it. I bought it in the Barras about 20 years ago. I saw it one Saturday and it was 30 quid. And I thought, right, that's pretty cool. I've never heard of Avon or anything like that. It's an Avon Rose Morris, Japan. Yeah, so I tried to buy it in the Barras. And I said, the guy wanted 30 quid and I said, I'll give you, you take 20 for it? The guy's like, no, it has to be 30. He'd been a wee bit stroppy about it. I was like, okay. I was like, at this point, this is when I just bought my Epiphone EBO, my first one. So I'd sold my Aria ZZB, which I always talk about, that I shouldn't have traded in, but eventually got it back, the exact same guitar 20 years later. So I bought this, and I didn't buy this. I said the plan was, because it was just a cheapie, because I didn't realise you could get good things cheap. Back then I thought you had to spend, which still a lot of people do, I think. Oh, and if I'm going to be gigging, I need to spend £200 or £300 on an Epiphone or a Squire Classic Vibe or something. You can't use a cheapie guitar. So I just said to the guys, I was just going to use it to smash up at the end of a gig or something like that. And the guy was like, okay. And then I went in either the following week or the week after and said, I'm interested in that the bass sitting there. Would you take 20 quid for it? And the guy's like, yes. There was a guy in the other week who said he wanted it so he could smash it up on stage. So there was no way I would sell it to him. And it was like, Pierre, okay, that's great. It was me, yay. So I had to actually walk. I didn't have a case or anything like that. I walked this all the way back from the Barras to Queen Street Station, and see the number of people, just random people in the street that commented on it because I was carrying a really cool looking EBO. Two separate folks like, Pierre, geezer butler bass. I was like, wow, how did you know that? Maybe I was wearing a Black Sabbath t-shirt or something, maybe. Yeah. So this has had a bit of a life. This is I had the internet anyway, so I had a P-bass bridge on it. Didn't really work that well. It was kind of, it was alright, but I still had my Epiphone at the time. It wasn't until I got my Gibson EBO I realised that this was actually an awful lot closer to the Gibson EBO than what the Epiphone one was, just dimension wise and feel wise. It's actually a really high quality bass. I made a double neck out of a kitchen worktop 20 years ago. Not like the butcher block ones, because I don't have one. Normally the double neck is hanging there made out of solid wood. This was made out of the sort of plastic coated chipboard. I made a double neck out of that, and I used this neck. I drew down my SG. I used this neck, and I can't remember what the guitar neck was I used on it. But I didn't throw anything out. And then once I decided that was just a heavy, it was a laugh project thing. I didn't realise it would actually ever work. And then I had this. I got it back, I put it back together again, and I had the great idea of making an EB6. This is back in the day before, as I said, I thought you could buy cheap things, so I thought I'd have to make these things. I've looked up an EB6 there on Reverb, but it's this is just a sort of guide thing. Not unlike Fender's Bass 6, EB6 was an early 6-string bass tuned a full octave lower than a guitar. The EB6 was originally produced as an ES style semi-hollow body. It was relaunched with an SG style body in '62. During its run, only 135 were ever made, and the guide price is $4,000 to $5,500. So I was never going to get one anyway. But it's not 100% right, that, because it wasn't actually meant to be like an EB6. Well, it was kind of meant to go like a Fender 6, but this was tuned like a baritone guitar, not a full octave. You know, a full octave would imply it's still E, A, D, G, B, E, but an octave down. It's not. This was a B, E, A, D, F sharp E was what it was meant to be tuned as. So it was like a sort, maybe a baritone guitar as opposed to being a bass. So I altered this one. I made a mess of the headstock. I tried to paint it. So I put an extra 2 tuners on it. I assume I must have moved those two. I can't actually see whatever it was I painted it with, hidden up the. So I'd imagine I probably moved these 2 tuners down because they're tight closer. These are the original Japanese tuners, like good ones. This is long before I knew anything about Japanese guitars, by the way, because these basses themselves, if you can find one, they're really good. This one is really good, but the big but in there, they're not all like this one was. Even though it says Avon Rose Morris Japan on the top, there are other ones that say Avon Rose Morris Japan on the top, and they look from a distance exactly the same, because my pal was really impressed with this and wanted to make one himself. And I said, there's one there, it's the same, blah blah blah, and he bought it, and it was horrible. It was made of, everything on it was like 1/10 as good as this, but it looked the same from a distance. Kind of reminded me of what a lot of modern guitar companies do. But this thing had a plywood neck, a plywood fingerboard, a plywood body, even things like, see when you look at the tuners look kind of like this, apart from this bit, instead of being metal, was plastic. And see, there's 4 screws. These ones looked like they had 4 screws, but they didn't. 2 of them were fake screws. So it was kind of part of the moulding, you know what I mean? So they could save 1/10 of a pence by only using 2 screws instead of 4. You know, it was right down to that, right down to the lines thing. So there are Avon, and this one is basically, well, it says made in Japan on the back. I wonder actually, I don't think it's Pancake Construction. It's not. It's ridiculously close to my EBO, but unfortunately I modded it, didn't I? I left the EBO pickup in it. I put humbucker here, a humbucker there, and I've drilled lots of holes. I've no idea what they used to do. So there's at least 4 knobs for thing. There's 2, which I'd imagine were mini switches, and 2 outputs, a 3-way selector. I think I had this so that it was you had like a volume and a tone, and some sort of switch for the EBO pickup. I had it running through my bass amp, and then I had the other 2 went into the switch, and a volume and a tone, and their own output to go into the guitar amp. And then that was maybe about 10 years ago when I pinched the pickups for something else, and it's just sat there and done nothing. I even tried to engrave EB6 into the truss rod cover, which didn't work. So now, at last, I've got checker plate, so I'm going to make another scratch plate. I've got a lot to hide. Yeah, so I've got to try and make something, maybe not, still not 100% decided exactly how I'm going to do this, because I only found out about the checker plate this morning. So I'm going to make it back into an EB6. I'll probably will keep it tuned, as I said, to the baritone guitar, so it'll be a baritone guitar, and a blank scratch plate. There's a lot of holes down here. I might have to make the scratch plate go over this to try and reduce the number of things I need on it, and I'm not really sure what to do pickup wise. Having lots in it's probably not the way to go. I'm thinking 2 humbuckers, or maybe I've actually got a PV, what's it called? Hyper. It's got a really cool name, and it's not sitting there anymore. The one that used to use in the PV TA60s, which were the same, the pickup, they used the same pickups. Hyperflux? No. It's got a name like that, like a pure space age technical name, but it was the same pickups they used in the bass and the guitar. So I'm thinking that would be perfect for this. It's also a funny shape, so if I'm cutting a scratch plate out to take it anyway, something like that in the neck, and then maybe a humbucker or something in the bridge. A scratch plate that I will draw around the batwing one on my SG to make it a bit more like the right shape, but it's still going to have to be extended a little bit to make it to cover up this, and again possibly maybe even a separate piece here, some sort of Batman symbol to try and cut that down to only having like, you know, like a 3-way switch and a volume and a tone and an output, rather than having the stereo. Well, maybe the stereo thing would actually be. If I can leave it, I will. Or maybe. Yeah, so I need to put 2 more mini switches in. I'm sure I could work that in actually, because I could run it so that you've got a 3-way. If I'm just running this, assuming 2 humbuckers or 2 that PV. So annoyingly I can't remember the name of it. So I've got the PV in the neck, a humbucker in the bridge. I can use this switch to make it stereo. Because then Billy Sheehan used to do that. He had like a neck pickup and a bridge pickup, and he'd have run 2 amps on our side. So I might just do that again. It's got like a strap bridge on it, which is actually mounted on a piece of metal to raise it up to the right height. So I'm actually quite looking forward to getting this up and running again. And then I've got wood. I will put a veneer on the top to hide this, whatever it is I've done. I might have to. I think the obvious thing to do is to put another 4 tuners that are like this on, like modern ones. And I'll keep these for something else. These I thought were really good tuners, but they might be worth quite a lot of money because someone will have a vintage guitar that wants these. But there's something about having, you know, the four like that and then the 2 like that. It looks like I'm missing a ferrule as well. It must have fallen out. Yeah, so this could be an interesting project, and I'm also looking forward to doing something. I've got another one. I've actually got a West Tone Concord bass, which I've never done anything with. I bought as a project. The guy had made a scratch plate and covered it in like vinyl. I don't know what it was, and I needed to cut it off. It's like kind of leather look vinyl, sort of leathery looking, but it was like a sort of spongy leather scratch plate. It looked absolutely hideous. The whole thing's been stripped, but it was a 1983 West Tone, so it will be a fantastic guitar. I think the pickup's still in it. I think it's just got a generic bridge on it, and the tuners are. I've actually bought tuners for it. I managed to find West Tone tuners for it. The tuners that were on it were left-handed ones, which I don't know if it technically really makes that much difference. You know, it's like, but they were on the wrong way round, so it's like you were sort of pulling on where it wasn't designed to be. Yeah, so there's that. Now I'm just going to play my tele for a wee bit, just to remind myself that I think even though I've been playing a lot of Strats recently, I think I'm still a tele man. It's just teles are. There's something about them. This one obviously has been modified a fair bit. Actually, thinking about that, I could maybe make a scratch plate for it out of that aluminium, paint it white, and then it would be down to just having. But then again, I can just, even though it does have that dodgy thing going on with the humbuckery thing, it's useful. You don't need to turn it on. It's just a normal telly. It kind of looks kind of funky. I also copied my pal. My pal had these sort of knobs on his telly, and I had, you know, the normal dome things. I just never think they look that good. I feel like because it's quite odd looking anyway, it kind of wants some other type of knob rather than normal telly knobs. Joyo US Dream. humbucker. Yeah, this is the sort of humbucker and the single coil, which kind of goes bad out of phase. It's a good sound though, whatever it is. One of the problems with not using the tele knobs is, oh, since it's stuck on better that time. cable sitting on top of the jam pedal there. Yeah, so this is a really nice guitar. This is actually very similar to, well, the one you can't see now, the Japanese Fender and the kind of Blazer and all that, because they're all made in the same factory. Again, this is a Fuji Gen. This is a bit earlier. This is like a, I think I decided to name it as 1973 or thereabouts, because it's in the Ibanez catalogue from 71 to 75 or 70 to 76 or something, so that's where I come up with 73. It is badged Antoria, but at the time Ibanez never made guitars. I think they've got their own factories now, but back then they just bought them and then put their own. Ibanez were more of a like a brand, just distributor type thing, rather than actually being a guitarist company. So you can get this exact guitar badged Ibanez, same thing with the metal truss rod cover, this funny shaped bridge with the sort of crazy looking saddles, and like a Les Paul switch, two knobs, and the output jack on the plate. I really like the output jack on the plate. I like that. I will maybe be making some Telecaster plates out of that aluminium, just to make, because on the front it's just better. It means you can play it sitting down. It's just like, not that I play it off that often sitting down, I'm normally standing up. I also really like the tuners in this. They do look like rubbishy ones, but see the, you can see they're really thin. The actual buttons on the top, these feel really cool. Fantastic. This is a fantastic guitar. It's one of those ones that I kind of, really the reason I'm keeping it is because it's not really worth as much money as it should be. Like, it's like you can get, the value of a guitar doesn't just sit on how much a guitar costs or how much it's worth. You can get a stonking guitar that aren't really that expensive. I mean, this will be probably worth less than like a new Squire or like one of those classic vibes or something like that, and it's leagues above that. It's basically like an American Fender or something like that, kind of quality wise. Obviously this one's a bit beat up, and the colour, I mean, the colour's just fantastic. If this had been black or red or natural, maybe not keeping it, but because it's this pure amazing looking sort of yellowed, I think they call it ivory. I just think that goes so well with the white scratch plate, and also I'm really pleased with it. Basically, I just love the look of this guitar, and the fact that it's a really good guitar just makes it that bit better. It's not a one-piece neck, but I mean, I can't absolutely everything. It's really spanky. Nothing. Rock on, stay safe, stay happy, play fun, go! And cheers to my pal who I have not named for that. Really appreciate it. It will be going to good stuff. As I said, I would have named you if I was 100% sure that you weren't going to get into trouble at work for pinching stuff. Even though I think you could probably argue that it's, you'd probably maybe throw it out anyway. Don't know. Rock on.